This is an opinion piece. The views expressed in this podcast are those of Judge Franco Harris. Things didn't end the way we had expected for Joe Paterno, but then again, the story isn't over. Think about it. John Surma removed the people who cared deeply for Penn State and who had the most heart for Penn State. They removed the people who would have stood up and fought for Penn State. I'm talking about Joe, Tim, Gary, and Graham. They were the fighters that were removed, and you saw what was left. And we all saw what happened. And as I said, we were struggling to understand what was happening. We knew these men, good men, and what was happening didn't make sense. No way would any of them, Joe Paterno, Tim Kelly, Gary Schultz, or Graham Spanier, ever, never turn their backs on a child being abused. So what was going on? Turns out there was a lot going on. So no more sitting on the sidelines. We're back in the game. I know child sexual abuse is a very sensitive, emotional issue, as it should be. But this is about Joe's last request to find the truth. At Joe Paterno's funeral, I pulled Mike McQuarrie aside to talk with him. The presentment of lies that was leaked stated explicitly what Mike McQuarrie had witnessed about the shower incident at Penn State, and that he told Joe Paterno what he saw. The 33rd statewide investigating grand jury. Victim number 2. This is what they said about Mike McQuarrie. As the graduate assistant put the sneakers in his locker, he looked into the shower. He saw a naked boy, victim 2, whose age he estimated to be 10 years old, with his hands up against the wall, being subjected to anal intercourse by a naked Sandusky. The graduate assistant was shocked, but noticed that both victim 2 and Sandusky saw him. Then it went on to say, the next morning, a Saturday, the graduate assistant telephoned Paterno and went to Paterno's home, where he reported what he had seen. So if you put those two sentences together and you connect those sentences, where they said that Mike said he saw a naked boy, estimated to be 10 years old, with his hands up against a wall, being subjected to anal intercourse by Sandusky. That's what everybody would think that he told Joe Paterno, as the sentence, the last paragraph in that sentence said, that he went to Paterno's home where he reported what he had seen. So when you look at all this and try to put this together, doesn't make sense, but back then, people were not looking for what made sense. They were furious and they were outraged with what they saw in here. So at Joe's funeral, I asked Mike McQuarrie a few direct questions, and really based upon the presentment. So I asked him, when you looked into the shower, did you witness anal sex? Mike McQuarrie said no. I'm saying to myself, what? This is what it said in the presentment. So I'm a little confused here, but I asked another question. I said, did you witness sodomy? Mike said no. Once again, I'm a little baffled here. So I'm trying to go on with this. So I said, okay, when you looked into the shower, did Jerry Sandusky have an erection? I asked him that. because it said he looked into the shower. Mike said he didn't look. I was in disbelief. What was going what was going on here? So I want to follow up with another piece that came out later and that's very confusing. And that is that when people were questioning about Mike looking directly into the shower, another version came out that said Mike McQuarrie walked into the shower room in the last building and heard sounds. Glancing into a mirror, he looked into the shower. So now they're saying he's glancing into a mirror. Before it said he glanced into the shower itself. I just want to point out at this time that there were two versions of how Mike McQuarrie witnessed this. One, as I told you, that was in the presentment, actual presentment, that he looked into the shower. And then another version came out where glancing into a mirror, he looked into the shower. Stuff is all over the board when we look into this and what they were doing with this presentment of lies. And then to top it off, Mike followed up with, I did not say the things in the presentment. I never used the word anal intercourse. What? If Mike didn't say those things, then who put those words in there? The phrase anal intercourse is what caused all of the outrage and anger. And that allowed John Surma to fire Joe Paterno and Graham Spanier. Who approved the insertion of that lie? What was the Attorney General's office doing by deliberately putting out lies? This lie ruined the lives of many good people. And this is our justice system in Pennsylvania. All of us now know that there was no crime committed that night at Penn State. The Attorney General's office was very crafty and devious about how they worded their presentment and how they positioned the sentences. All of this to stir public outcry. It worked. And it is a disgrace to justice everywhere. So once again, I want everyone to understand this. The evening of the Jerry Sandusky shower incident at Penn State, there was no sexual abuse that night. Mike McQuarrie did not see or witness any form of sexual abuse that night at Penn State. And just as important, all the people that Mike McQuarrie met with to tell them about the shower incident, he never told any of them that it was sexual. This includes Mike's father and family doctor friend. Mike told both of them he saw nothing sexual. We know Mike met with Joe Paterno, Tim Curley, and Gary Schultz, and all three said Mike never told them it was sexual. They all remembered the same thing, that Mike never told them it was sexual. So how about that presentment of lies? There are so many facets to this story and so many subplots that it's difficult to give you the facts as we now know them in any straightforward manner. I hope you'll stay with me as we try to unravel them.